Hey guys, it's Forte here, coming back with another video. We all know that solo queue in Splatoon can be very frustrating. I'm sure we've all blamed teammates at some point, but is there a way to maximise your win rate? This video is going to be aimed at people from C- to S+ rank. However, if you are already at X, I do recommend staying around just in case there's any tips you've missed. I fully believe this guide will be able to help the majority of players. Even players with very poor mechanical skill can still get to X rank from positioning and awareness. And although aim is important, it's just something that comes over time. In this video, I'm going to show you 4 tips for ranking up in Splatoon 2. Okay, so I'm going to say this straight away, but number 1 is do not feed. If you learn one thing from this video, please just make it be do not feed. And that is much harder to do than it sounds. Every single top player in their lifetime has fed at least once, and most honestly still do. When you're put in a bad situation, it's incredibly easy to feed. So this will take practice. For those of you who don't know what feeding is, it's just when you run in by yourself without your team and die alone. All this does is stagger your team and mean you have to take more time until your next push. Obviously, that's a bad thing. Remember, you're not Superman. Although you might think you can get those kills in the back line, it's probably best just to back out, preserve your special, and then use that special on your next push with your teammates. So if you know you feed quite a lot, my number 1 tip would always be to look at the top of your screen to see who's dead and who's alive. I've seen firsthand so many new players in this game just completely ignore the top of the screen. For one, it shows who has special, so it shows what you can prepare for and if you need to back out or not. And 2, more importantly, it shows who's dead on your team. If one or more of your team is dead against the enemy team who has 4 up, I recommend you back out. You can do this in 2 ways. 1, if you have the space, just swim away, it's quite easy. 2, if you're in a really tight situation, try and super jump out. Super jumping to spawn is a really good option, especially if you're playing the back line with Stingray. However, the reason I think people feed the most is due to greed. I feel like a lot of players, including myself, I am very guilty for this, see an enemy that looks like an easy shot, run in by themselves just to pinch them out and get the pick, try to run out, and either get killed in the process of killing the opponent, or get killed on the way out. Both those things are bad. So as tempting as it is to get the kill, I would stay put. So after you've backed out and there's nothing to do, the first priority I would give is to charge your special. Charging your special is incredibly important because it's the foundation and the building blocks of creating a push. It is possible to push without specials, however it's incredibly hard. So charge that special. So I think another really important thing about this game and ranking up is knowing your maps. You don't need to get a Splatoon degree to know your maps that well, but it is really nice if you know where your weapon should be on the map and where your teammates are at the time and what area of the map you should be holding. Some areas on some maps are just better for weapons than others are. For example, things like grates or catwalks, people call them, are very good for heavy splatling or any splatling because of the run speed you get. Other things like high up places is obviously very good for chargers, and places with a lot of corners are normally good for frontliners. Take this in mind when you play. It's also really key to know where your teammates are as well as you. If you've successfully pushed and are now waiting for the other team to come in, and 3 of your teammates are on the right side of the map holding one area, it's probably really smart for you to go to the left side of the map and hold that area. Because if you don't, then all it's going to do is give an open door for the other team to push back in. Map knowledge when considering specials and sub-weapons is also really important. Some specials like Stingray on Port Mackerel or the Cloud on Wahoo World just really fit the map. This also goes for things like Sprinkler, where you can put sprinklers in really sneaky places on some maps like Gobi Arena or Black Belly Skate Park, and it's really hard for your team to pay them back. Taking that into account will give you an edge over your opponents. If you use the terrain to your advantage, all it means is you're maximising your chances of winning compared to your opponents. Okay, my third tip is going to be know what role you play in your team composition. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into 2 parts. The first part is know what your weapon does by itself. And the second part is know what your weapon needs to do in the team composition you're given in solo queue. The first part's really obvious. Obviously, if you're playing a short range weapon which can kill quickly, you're probably going to be wanting to play in the front line, where you're creating the pushes by killing the opponents and picking them off. For example, weapons like this are like dualies and tend to take splatter shot. On the other hand, weapons like charges, explosher, heavy splatling, they're all considered backline weapons. And what these weapons do, they normally stay in the back of the map and be a beacon for your other teammates, and also just be there for the frontliners to support them, which allow them to actually make the pushes up. So obviously knowing that is well and good, and you can get decently far by just doing what your function's meant to be. But the thing is, in solo queue, sometimes you get put in really unorthodox team comps, and you need to understand what you actually need to do. A good example for this is, I'll use myself. Sometimes I go into solo queue, and I am playing heavy splatling, that's my main weapon, and I'll get paired with a charger on my team. And, you know, that's fine, you know, we have two backlines, so not the end of the world. But what I have to understand from that is the charger is the more dominant backline weapon. It's more, you know, heavy splatling can be kind of played as a bit more of a hybrid than the charge can. So I need to think in my head, okay, this is, you know, double backline. I now need to push up a little bit more than I normally would in a game. Otherwise we're not going to have the offense we normally have. And by doing that, I'm allowing the charger to play his role properly. And he's probably going to be supporting me as well, so it will allow me to play more aggressive. The exact same thing could be said if you have two Brellas in a team and two Enzaps. You know, if you have Kenta Undercar Brellas and you're playing an Enzap, I would recommend definitely playing a bit more aggressive than you normally would on Enzap, just because Enzap does have the potential to slay. You know, just using your head on stuff like that is going to mean that your team's going to be more rounded, and what your team is doing is going to be more rounded than if you all just play what your function's meant to be. So you really need to know what your weapon does in your team composition, and if you do know that, you'll start to see your team making pushes and holding pushes a lot better. Okay, so tip number 4 is to always assume you have to carry the match. This sounds like a bit of a weird one, but honestly, solo queue is just nothing like competitive play. In competitive play, you rely on your teammates to kill for you and play objective for you. You're all part of the team. However, in solo queue it's completely different. Because there's no voice chat in solo queue, the game's played in a way which is more like every man to themselves than actually a team setting. It is unfortunately because of this that you have to assume you have to do everything in the game. This includes doing the objective by yourself and killing everyone. Basically, you just have to carry your team. I'm not saying that in a mean way, saying that you suck and how you just need to carry more. All I'm saying is just don't rely on your team for anything. Don't be that person in solo queue who, when has an opportunity to make a push with the Rainmaker, leaves it for the other teammate to take and go and get some more kills. You may have got loads of kills, but at the end of the day, did you push? No. You can't rely on your teammates to take the Rainmaker, so why don't you just do it yourself? I'm sorry if this is a really short point, but I guess what I'm saying is that people in solo queue suck and you need to babysit them. That's about it. Okay, so I was going to include a 5th tip, but overall I don't think I am, just because I think I've covered all the key points and I'll just be rambling if I made one more. Obviously there's things outside the game which are very important. For example, your mental game, how you react when you lose and if you get tilted or something like that, you know, that needs to be good. But other than that, I think I've covered everything. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy making videos. If you want to subscribe, then yeah, please do. You don't have to if you don't want to. But yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.